Hello everyone, I'm Richard Boyd from Energetics Institute and welcome back to our series, Surviving the Lockdown. Today we're going to look at the freeze response or defence that some people have and which gets activated in times like the coronavirus. So you've heard of fight or flight. Well, freeze is the third defence, and basically it comes about because a person has had, probably in their past, possibly in childhood, a major event where a perceived or real threat caused them to go into a freeze or shocked state, which equates to terror. What happens then is that the person is prone to reenact that defense each time they come under threat. So what you get is a person who literally freezes. The idea is they go still, they're immobilized, and the idea is that the threat or predator will not see them as it passes because they are immobilized or standing still. Underneath that frozenness is a desire to flee or do flight. So there's a high anxiety, and it's correspondingly seen in the muscles and in the body through a hypertension and hypertonic muscles, which hold tension because the person does want to run but is too afraid to run. They are mobilized. So what we know is that someone who is in a freeze or frozen position is like a crystalline structure. They are rigid and they are stiff. So, as you know in nature, things like that tend to shatter or fragment if force is applied or stress is applied to them. In the same way, these sort of people, when stress comes on, can easily fragment and collapse if the rigidity that holds them up with black and white thinking, a reliance on beliefs, a reliance on an ideology, a reliance on rules, which they might get from the government or they may get from somewhere else. If those things seem to fail them or don't help them ward off the threat, there is an underlying fragility or shakiness in the personality, and the anxiety can burst forth and they can then go into collapse. So what you see in these people is this reliance on rules as a structure to create self-control. So we've previously mentioned the use of control as a safety-seeking strategy, but that's more about controlling others, which is typically of the aggressive, controlling, fight style strategy. This type of control in this personality is self-control. They are about controlling themselves because they spend a lot of time doing safety seeking and safety making activities and strategies to hold themselves together, to feel safe. So safety making preoccupies a lot of their time. In the current environment, they'll tend to isolate because that is behind a lot of their safety making anyway. The problem is that when a person isolates, they are then left to ruminate on their thoughts, and a person who has this type of strategy, the freeze, immobilized strategy as a defense, as a way of trying to create safety, will tend to have a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of thinking. And they may have rituals which are based on structure, which are based on rules. So they must always do the following. So they have habits, they have rituals, which they follow as a way of keeping safe. These people are prone, though, to also go on and read all the conspiracy theories because they are more likely, through their fear, to believe there could be something bad about to happen. Because the human brain, when it's faced a perceived, unseen threat, looks to be able to find that threat, isolate that threat, and name that threat. So when people put information out there, they are more likely to go to negative information because it confirms their suspicion that they're not safe. So what you see in these people then is they may get very righteous because the rules give them a sense of I'm right, you're wrong, also a sense of this is what I must do and you must do. So they'll be intolerant. There'll be an aspect of them that is very much black and white around the way they see things because they're based on structure and on rules. And also there's not an allowance for forgiveness and compassion because they're not in their feelings, they're in their head, they're hypervigilant. So what has to happen is that they need to be able to break this immobilization, break this freeze structure, if they are to actually access further resources to make them safe. So if you identify with this strategy, one of the things you need to try and do is do things like music, where you just shake it up. You just literally flow, because a rigid structure doesn't flow. You need to flow more. So move and flow. Also, they breathe in and then hold it in terror. So you have to learn how to breathe out, the exhale, deep out, and then deep in, because they tend to shallow breathe and hold their breath in. And that creates increased blood pressure and tension, hypertension within the system for holding their breath, which increases anxiety, which increases stress. So deep breathing, both organic breathing in and out, is critical for them. Also, gentle rocking. Gentle rocking can also bring self-soothing to the system, and it's a flow because it's rhythmic, it's soft, against the hardness of the immobilization and rigidity they have when they go into shock. So these are some of the strategies. Reading is useful, but they also should make sure they don't spend too much time on digital, because that can lead them down to pathways where they find information that may be negative, that may feed underlying fears. Making contact with others and engaging as much as you can in this environment is very good for them and a useful strategy. But what they should do is to ground themselves, get into their bodies and loosen their bodies up, and then get involved with deep breathing, both the inhale and the exhale. Exercise, yoga, very good for these sort of people. And even going out for a walk, being in the sunshine, having a pet or something they can make contact with. It's about building trust and building safety through other means for them. So there's a lot of terror, a lot of fear in this personality, and these times activate that, trigger that, and put them into their defense. Okay, I hope you found that useful, and tomorrow when we catch up, I'll go through the last defense in the series, and then we'll talk in future talks about other things that are useful to know and things you can be doing as part of surviving the lockdown. Bye for now.